India and Ireland are 75th year in the diplomacy, and we have with us His Excellency Kevin Kelly, the Ambassador of Ireland to India, to discuss the relationship between India and Ireland and also to understand what Ireland thinks about the global standings of India and in general the world that we are living in. Thank you, His Excellency, for joining us.
Thank you.
If I may ask, India and Ireland are in its 75th year of diplomacy. What is it that binds India and Ireland so close for almost, two-thirds of the century?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for interviewing me. I'm really delighted to have an opportunity to talk about this. So Ireland and India, of course, we're a very small country, and India is a massive, huge country. But in fact, we have a very proud shared history because we both struggled for freedom from colonialism. Our freedom fighters at the foundation of our state swapped notes and exchanged ideas with Indian freedom fighters. And at that time, so even before the independence of both of our countries, our leadership was talking to each other. There's been a whole range of connections ever since then. So, for example, one thing that we're very proud of is that even there are some parts of the Indian constitution that are borrowed from the Irish constitution. So we have a proud history that was also continued through Irish educators in different parts of the country, right up to today, when we've got a huge amount of business and trade and people-to-people links. We have two-way trade of about 10 billion euros, which stacks up very favourably within the European Union. And there's so much more that we can actually do. So huge amount of people-to-people links. We now have about 100,000 Indians living in Ireland. That's almost 2% of our population, which is actually, it's very, very significant. Every year we have about 10,000 Indian young men and women who choose Ireland to come and study. So again, that's something that we're very much delighted about, that we have these proud people-to-people links.
His Excellency, shared history, long diplomatic relationship. Now there is also cultural diplomacy at play, if the reports are to be believed. If you can elaborate to our viewers, what is Ireland doing in Kolkata for Durga Puja?
Great. No, look, we're really excited about this. So this is the 75th anniversary of diplomatic relations, like you said. So we have a whole range of events happening throughout the year. We have a lecture series. We've got some musicians coming from Ireland. We've had a number of events. But the highlight is going to be next week in Calcutta. We have, for the famous Durga Puja festival, we have collaborated through the good offices of our honorary consul in Calcutta, and we have brought together an artistic partnership between a very famous Irish street theatre puppetry group called Mockness. They're very famous in my country because they produce giant puppetry, very dramatic street art. And for St. Patrick's Day, our national day, and for the various arts festivals all around Ireland, you'll see Mockness's art. They're partnering with a really creative group in Calcutta called Bahala Nutal Dal, and with a very talented artist called Sanjeeb Saha. And in fact, Sanjeeb is the one who's leading this. We're producing a joint pandal between Ireland and India. And what's really interesting is, of course, the Durga Puja is to celebrate the goddess Durga. So what we're doing is we're creating a giant Celtic goddess, Danu, who was also a mystical, an image of strong feminine power. And so in this pandal that's been created, I haven't yet seen it, but I've seen some photographs and videos of the production process. The artists from Ireland have been working with the Calcutta artists for the past month, and they'll be unveiling it next week. So for us, that's a really important, I like the way you described cultural diplomacy. I think that's what it's about. It's about finding ways to kind of raise awareness and visibility from Ireland in this country, and what better way to do it than in this amazing festival. I loved it last year, and I just was inspired to kind of set up this partnership.
Great. Ambassador, if I may ask, you have spoken about the Indian diaspora. We have 100,000 strong diaspora in Ireland, which constitutes, as you mentioned, 2% of your population. How do you see their role in Ireland, its economy, and given that Prime Minister has started calling the diaspora the brand ambassador of India, and yes, last week when Prime Minister was in the United States, he also said that for him AI is not artificial intelligence but American Indian. So in a way, India is putting diaspora at a pedestal where India is looking forward to diaspora and expect diaspora to be the brand ambassador of India. So how do you perceive Indian diaspora in Ireland?
In this area, we're very alike in terms of what Prime Minister Modi said about the Americans in India. Just to talk about America, for example, we're a small country of 5 million people. In America, 25 million people, when they fill in their census form, they describe themselves as Irish. So can you imagine the power of that? That has brought huge benefits to our country, just as much as the Prime Minister said about the role that American Indians can play in terms of supporting their country. So for us, those people abroad are the global Irish, we call them. And so we have a diaspora minister, we have a diaspora strategy. For us, it's very, very important. And that has brought a huge amount of benefits for our country in terms of foreign direct investment, in terms of helping Ireland to grow from being, we were the poorest country in Europe in 1973 when we joined the European Union, and now we are one of the wealthiest countries in Europe. That didn't happen by accident. It happened as well, a major role being played by our diaspora. So you mentioned about the Indians in Ireland. These people are contributing hugely to our society. It is remarkable. So they're in every sector that you'll see, in pharma, in tech, in medicine and healthcare in particular. So, and I know that from personal experience. If you go to the doctor, to the hospital, or to the clinic, the chances are you'll be treated by a professional Indian nurse, perhaps from Kerala. The cardiologist is Indian, the surgeons are Indian. So they're making a huge and very, very positive impact to Irish society. And they're very, very well integrated, within our community. In fact, so much so that in the last local elections that were held in Ireland a few months ago, there were a number of Indians elected into prominent positions, and the mayor of South County Dublin is an Indian. So we're very proud of that kind of how Indians are contributing towards our society.
So you have a really positive view toward Indian diaspora, but that's not the case everywhere. In Europe, we have seen there is a slight discomfort about the growing Indian diaspora influence. For that matter, in Ireland also a case came in, which is now a viral video, where a man can be seen saying that Indians buying or purchasing house or residence in Ireland is in a way colonizing Ireland by Indians. How do you see that?
I mean, you'll always get these people who say things like that are completely inappropriate. If Irish people were to speak like that, how would ourselves, we were a country that, as I said, was a very poor country. We suffered colonialism. We were fighting for our freedom. We had a famine in our country in which 1 million people died and 1 million people emigrated. What would we say if Irish people were treated like that? Now we recognise the importance of immigration. So, of course, unfortunately, you're right to say that we are seeing a rise across Europe of some of these more right-wing voices. But I'm very happy to say that they do not represent the mainstream. Most certainly in Ireland, they have no political representation. They're not in any way, there are no elected parties in Parliament espousing those right-wing views. Unfortunately, in some other European countries, we do have political parties espousing these kind of views, but happily in Ireland, I'm not trying to say that it's perfect or it's paradise. Of course, you'll always have challenges wherever you go, just as much as, Irish people, when they go abroad, can also face challenges. But in general, I'm happy to say that from talking to the Indian diaspora that I meet when I'm in Ireland, they seem to be very happy broadly and, and well integrated within society.
Ambassador, if we can talk a bit more about the world that we are seeing today. For example, there is Russia-Ukraine conflict, which is in its third year now, and there is a Israel-Hamas conflict, which is in a way turning regional, given that the Lebanon, the Iran, fighters from Yemen, they all are jumping into it. How do you see Russia-Ukraine conflict and the West Asia situation, and how do you perceive India's role in those conflicts?
Okay, like as you correctly said, we're living in a very turbulent time. The one thing that I would say, and this is an official position of our government, we do not describe this as a Russia-Ukraine conflict. This is a war that Russia inflicted against Ukraine. It's an act of aggression. It's an illegal act trying to take away the territory of a sovereign country. So the first thing we say is that we resist any attempt to describe this as a war or a conflict between two countries. This has been an invasion. We have stood very strongly from the very start, in support of Ukraine and in support of, calling for an end to Russia's unjustified attack. In addition to that, we have received a huge amount of Ukrainian refugees into Ireland. I think, I don't have the final figure, but it could be up to maybe 70, 80,000 people came from Ukraine and got a huge amount of support within our country. We hope that we see a day that those people can feel safe enough to want to return to their own country. But in the meantime, they've been welcomed into Ireland. In terms of your question about India's role, there's no doubt but that India is now a very, very important player internationally. Very important within this region, in the Indo-Pacific, in terms of the influence that India has as being now the most populous country in the world, and also gradually becoming the third wealthiest economy. So there is no doubt but that India is going to play a very, very important role, both in terms of its neighbourhood here, but also internationally. And so it is great to see that the Prime Minister Modi, I understand even he met with Mr. Zelensky in New York just in the last day or so. And I think that India's voice will be very, very important in terms of trying to encourage Russia to take a more responsible stance in terms of how it's behaving.
Ambassador, this brings me to my last question. As you said that India will have more and more say, do you feel India's moment at global stage has arrived, and is India's bid for UNSC permanent seat a just call?
India's bid for representation, better representation at the United Nations, is absolutely justified. Just as much as we've always been a strong advocate for reform of the UN Security Council, we also feel that Africa, for example, as a massive continent, is just not adequately represented within that body. So we totally understand India's call, and we have been one of those countries very much supportive of reform. Whether that means more permanent seats or whether it means changes to the Security Council, I think that there has to be a discussion about that, because we have seen the impact at the moment with 5 permanent members of the UN exercising their veto is leading to absolute dysfunction. Is the answer to have more permanent seats, or is it the answer to look at other particular models? So I don't think Ireland is in any way demanding any specific approach in terms of this, but we have always been very clear in our discussions with India that we definitely support its very legitimate demands for reform of the UN. The UN is not perfect, but it's the best thing we have, and we have to make the UN work. And unfortunately, because of this need for reform, it hasn't been able to operate in terms of as well as it should.
Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you for joining us on Times Now. You were watching Times Now, and we had Kevin Kelly, the Ambassador of Ireland, speaking to us on a host of issues from India-Ireland relationship to what's happening in Russia-Ukraine conflict, which he says, as per his country, is a war, and how India and Ireland perceive each other in the 75th year of its diplomatic relation. here in New Delhi with camera person Mohan Singh, Rishabh Martin Pratap for Times Now.